Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Shane Bigham. Coming up in this edition, U.S. officials have retrieved the black boxes from the American Airlines flight that collided with an Army helicopter. China's film market's off to a strong start this year. Celebrations have taken place in the West Bank and Gaza after Israel freed 110 Palestinian prisoners. We begin in North America. Air travel is resumed at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. after Wednesday night's deadly mid-air collision between two aircraft. U.S. officials have retrieved the black boxes from the American Airlines flight that collided with an Army helicopter. All 67 people on board the two aircraft are believed to have died. As U.S. authorities continue searching for bodies, the tragedies quickly descended into a bipartisan blame game. Owen Fairclough reports from Washington, D.C.
A tragedy on the doorstep of the U.S. Capitol, where grief was quickly upended by politics. An American Airlines flight from Kansas, seconds from landing at Washington Reagan National Airport, colliding with a U.S. Army helicopter. The loss of all 67 passengers and crew on both aircraft, linking communities across the country.
This is a terrible tragedy that will unite those in Washington, D.C. and Wichita, Kansas forever.
And with the dead, including U.S. and Russian figure skaters, tributes from the Kremlin. We offer our condolences to loved ones who lost our fellow citizens who died in this air crash. But even before the rescue teams had retrieved all the bodies from the freezing water and the cause of the tragedy has been established, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed the Federal Aviation Administration had been compromised by his predecessors using employment diversity programs he's scrapping.
Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country.
As the blame game continues, authorities are facing questions about safety in one of the most congested airspaces in the world, with a history of recent near misses. And one line of inquiry appears to be focusing on whether the Black Hawk helicopter crew was wearing night vision equipment during its training mission.
It was a fairly experienced crew, and that was doing a required annual night evaluation. They did have night vision goggles.
But that's disputed, one defense official telling Associated Press the crew was not wearing them. As flights resumed at Washington National Airport, a country that hadn't suffered a fatal commercial air disaster since 2009 is now facing a national tragedy and a new president setting the tone for how it comes to terms with the loss.
That was Owen Fairclough in Washington, D.C. Several people on board the crashed American Airlines flight were athletes returning from a figure skating competition and training in Kansas. Hendrik Sybrandy has more.
We're at the headquarters of U.S. figure skating in Colorado Springs, the U.S. flag flying at half staff. The offices here are closed on this snowy Thursday as those who promote the sport begin to process the shock of what happened in Washington, D.C. According to reports, 14 members of the figure skating community were passengers on the jet that collided with the U.S. Army helicopter. They were returning from a development camp that followed the U.S. Figure Skating Championships held last week in Wichita, Kansas. Among those killed, 6 people affiliated with the Skating Club of Boston, including teenage skater Spencer Lane and his mother.
Spencer was a pretty young phenom, has only been with the sport a couple of years and was just rocketing to the top. And his parents were working to support that. 2
Russian-born coaches from the Boston club, Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Naumov, who were 1994 World Pair champions, were among the others on board. The figure skating community is tight-knit, as is the amateur athletics community in general. News of the crash has reverberated around the world. We are devastated by this unspeakable tragedy and hold the victims' families closely in our hearts, said U.S. figure skating.
The main lesson I think learned in skating is you get back up, keep on trying, and even when it's hard, you get back up. Even when you're crying, hurt, pain, you get back up and move forward. It's not easy, but That's what we all have to do now together.
There are no plans for any type of official service or remembrance here in Colorado, at least not yet. U.S. Figure Skating says we will continue to monitor the situation and will release more information as it becomes available.
That was Hendrik Seibrandi reporting. Turning to Asia, China's film market's off to a strong start this year. Total box office revenue over the Spring Festival holiday, including pre-sales, has surpassed 4 billion yuan, or more than $550 million US dollars. Leading the box office are animated sequel Ne Zha, comedy, mystery, detective Chinatown 1900, and mythological blockbuster Creation of the Gods 2, Demon Force. This year's holiday films cover a wide range of genres, including war, animation, and suspense. Chen Zheyuan has more.
2:35的可以入场了，2:35的。
Heading to the cinema during the New Year has become a family tradition.
During the Lunar New Year, we always bring my child to the cinema to watch movies and to feel the festive vibe. We come every year. I come to the cinema to watch movies every year during the Chinese New Year because the cinema has a more festive atmosphere. I watched the Ne Zha today, and I plan to watch Detective Chinatown 1900 or Creation of Gods 2 with my family in the next few days.
Packed with moviegoers, staff at the Lumiere Pavilion say they have been busy since 9 in the morning. Compared to 2024, this year sees even bigger productions on the silver screens, including films like Ne Zha and Creation of the Gods.
Aside from families, cinemas are welcoming a new type of moviegoer.
A new group of viewers that have emerged are hardcore fans of various series.
Sun Yanbin, an expert analyzing the Chinese film industry, watched 5 of the 6 New Year releases in just 2 days, opening the year with blockbusters and movie series. Sun says it injects confidence into the industry for 2025.
The 2025 Lunar New Year box office is a battle that will determine the movie market in 2025.
She says these productions showcase the growth and maturity of the Chinese film industry.
What we saw this time were all big production special effects movies. I was touched by the maturity of special effects because China's special effects level has reached a global first-class level. This is why when I watched Ne Zha, I was particularly moved. One is that I thought, wow, the special effects are really beyond my imagination.
Viewers say they will continue to check out more films with friends and family, offering a topic to share as the holiday gathering continues.
That was Chen Zheyuan in Beijing. In San Francisco, celebrations are in full swing for Chinese New Year. Local officials held a special ceremony in Chinatown, hoping to boost morale and the economy. Mark Neal reports.
In San Francisco Chinatown, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce launches an opening celebration to usher in the Year of the Snake. Families receive toys, fruit, red packets, and golden eggs filled with candy. 10,000 firecrackers explode as a dragon parades through the streets, held up by people from all walks of life.
Everybody's supporting everybody. It's just not Chinese people, it's not white people, not black people, it's everybody. It's, it's just a multicultural thing.
San Francisco's new mayor, Daniel Lurie, had celebrated with residents in Chinatown on the night of his inauguration earlier in January. He returned to kick off Chinese New Year in Portsmouth Square, which is known as the living room of Chinatown.
The snake symbolizes wisdom, flexibility, and transformation, qualities that should inspire us as we embrace the opportunities of the year to come. Gong hei fat choi, sun nin fai luk.
Yang Shozheng, acting consul general of the Consulate General in San Francisco, also attended, offering wishes for the relationship between China and San Francisco to continue to blossom.
I wish for San Francisco to continue leading and achieving even greater success in the friendly exchanges between China and the United States. San Francisco has borne witness to exchanges between Chinese and American peoples for over a century.
Economically, there's no more important time in Chinatown than right now. In fact, during this several-week period of the Chinese New Year, businesses will generate about 30% of the revenue that they make for the entire year. The Chinese Chamber of Commerce says remote work trends and a decline in tourism have stalled business in Chinatown, a situation they hope the new mayor can help improve.
We are very hopeful that with his policy in trying to bring more people back into the city, making the city very appealing again, people would want to come back and work in the city, right? And that would bring the crowd not just to the surrounding area, but back into Chinatown.
To be very honest with you, visitors from China were really critical to the economy here because for the last decade before the pandemic, they were really the ones who were coming here, spending, driving. And so until we see the return of Chinese visitors and the downtown office crowd, we're still in a state of recovery.
A recovery that community leaders say is off to a strong start, but will take a lot of hard work to keep the momentum going throughout the Year of the Snake.
That was Mark Neo in San Francisco. In the Middle East, celebrations have taken place in the West Bank and Gaza after Israel freed 110 Palestinian prisoners as part of a ceasefire agreement. In exchange, Hamas freed 3 Israeli and 5 Thai hostages. Israel's prisoner release was delayed by several hours on the instruction of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was angered by what he called chaotic scenes during Hamas's earlier release of hostages in Gaza. Jonathan Regev reports from Tel Aviv.
This was meant to happen in the earlier hours of the day, but there was a 3-hour delay. Why so? Israel asked for assurances from the mediators, mostly from Qatar, which is the closest mediator to Hamas, saying that Israel wants to make sure that no such scenes as those seen earlier today will be seen. It was major chaos in Khan Yunis when 2 Israeli hostages and 5 Thai nationals were released. They had a very difficult time making the very short road from the Hamas vehicle to the Red Cross vehicle. This due to the fact that the scene was full of people and the scenes were very chaotic. The crowd, even once they boarded the Red Cross car, it took quite some time for the vehicle to leave as the masses blocked the way. And Israel wants to make sure that the release process goes on as smooth as possible. But what was happening this afternoon is something that Israel finds unacceptable, and that is why the prisoner release was delayed until Israel got assurances from the mediators that it will not happen again. We will see what these assurances are, how much do they mean, pretty quickly, as already in less than 48 hours on Saturday morning, we're meant to see another release of 3 more hostages, 3 male hostages. Israel hopes that these assurances are meaningful, and therefore we should see a much more peaceful release on Saturday than the one seen this afternoon.
That was Jonathan Regev reporting. Finally, in Africa, President Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of the Congo has announced what he calls a vigorous and coordinated response against the Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group. Regional tensions in Africa have spiraled after M23 launched an offensive on the city of Goma and killed South African peacekeepers. South Africa's warned Rwanda that further attacks would result in a declaration of war. The DRC government considers M23 to be a terrorist organization and has rejected negotiations. Chris Okamringa has more from Kinshasa.
President Felix Tshisekedi's speech was essentially a declaration of war, calling on the Congolese citizens across the country to rally behind the army, the FARDC, to resist this military occupation by the Rwandan Defense Forces and the M23 rebels, who he described as puppets of the Kigali administration. He said that they will not look on as the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity is violated by a neighboring country that has violated all the United Nations Charter and other treaties in the region. He also said, criticized the international community for what he called the inaction in this conflict. He said that the DRC has noted the passivity of this international community in the face of this aggression, and that they will not allow to be humiliated and crushed. They will fight and emerge victorious. But the president also said that he is open to dialogue, but dialogue in terms in terms that are acceptable to the DRC. He has absolutely rejected having any direct talks with the M23 rebels, but is open to having talks with Rwanda, which he accuses of backing the M23 rebels. And so this is a sticking issue in a mediation process known as the Luanda process that is being brokered by the Angolan president. It collapsed last December because Rwanda asked the DRC to hold direct talks with the M23 rebels. And so what we are hearing from the ground is that the M23 rebels are moving to other areas of the region, areas that are rich in minerals. They're establishing an administrative structure. They are set to start collecting taxes, and that will lead to the loss of a lot of revenue to the DRC because North Kivu, South Kivu are areas that are very rich in minerals that are contributing a lot of money to the coffers of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
That was Chris Okamringa reporting. Recapping the day's headlines, U.S. officials have retrieved the black boxes from the American Airlines flight that collided with an Army helicopter. China's film market's off to a strong start this year, and celebrations have taken place in the West Bank and Gaza after Israel freed 110 Palestinian prisoners. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sport, and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Shane Bigham. Thanks for listening.